Welcome to Mark's British Airways Fleet Update, looking at short and long-haul fleets.
Thanks for joining us on the British Airways Fleet Update. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and click for notifications.
Welcome to the very latest British Airways fleet update. We're slightly late this week, so apologies for that. It's an update dominated in many ways by activity on the long-haul fleet, where British Airways has started cancelling flights again due to a shortage of aircraft across the fleet. We'll come to that shortly, but before we do, let's have a little look across the short-haul fleet. And first of all, the British Airways subsidiaries, British Airways City Flyer and the Embraer 190 fleet, fairly quiet, but Lima Charlie Yankee uniform flew to Exeter on the 9th of June using a slightly different call sign, City Flyer 9765. 3 days down at Exeter back as the City Flyer 9770 back into traffic that evening, once again leaving Exeter with no aircraft. On the Gatwick-based Euroflyer subsidiary, we've seen the return of A320 Echo Uniform Victor. It's an aircraft that's penciled in for a long-term permanent transfer from London Heathrow to Gatwick, and I think many of us assumed as it arrived at Gatwick that was its transfer flight, but it operated for a short period of time from Gatwick and has then returned on the 9th of June as the Euroflyer 9750 back to Heathrow and started once again operating as part of the mainline fleet out of London Heathrow. Now, we're still expecting that aircraft to transfer permanently to Gatwick at some point soon. I think what's happened is that the availability of aircraft from the Gatwick fleet has been, very good. They've not had any substantive issues, and they can't afford the luxury of having a additional aircraft at Gatwick when they're encountering some problems and some challenges over at London Heathrow, and as a consequence they have chosen to take it back. But they didn't quite get their predictions right, and Euroflyers ended up doing a bit of additional subleasing of a second Titan Airways aircraft. We'll talk about that in just a moment. And just a reminder, there's 5 aircraft expected to transfer from Heathrow to Gatwick. 2 of them are there now, which is Echo Uniform X-Ray Echo Uniform Yankee. The other 3 expected over the next few weeks and months, allowing 2 or 3 of the aircraft at Gatwick to be withdrawn for scrap. The Titan Airways wet lease with Papa Oscar Whiskey Kilo continues, but as I mentioned, Papa Oscar Whiskey Mike has returned for a couple of days on the 11th and 12th of June. Across at London Heathrow, the short-haul fleet with the Airbus contingent has seen a reasonable amount of action. Echo Uniform Yankee Romeo returned empty from Glasgow on a positioning flight, although it arrived in service straight on a flight to Athens, Speedbird 32 Tango. Airbus A319 Delta Bravo Charlie flew up to Glasgow for maintenance. The crew actually brought that A320 I just referenced back, and Echo Uniform Golf, one of the A320s, entered Glasgow maintenance as well on the 11th of June. Echo Uniform Delta returned in service from British Airways at Glasgow. Echo Uniform Romeo remains at Malta. Echo Uniform Yankee Lima remains at Dublin. Echo Uniform Yankee Papa made its way back from Malta on a positioning flight on the 9th of June and replaced by Tango November Uniform, which had flown out earlier that day to Malta for maintenance. Echo Uniform Foxtrot flew out to Amsterdam on the 8th of June, ran into some difficulties with an unspecified maintenance issue. Repaired on the ground over 4 or 5 days at Amsterdam and back as the BA 9271 empty flight back to London Heathrow on the 13th of June. And Echo Uniform Yankee Mike departed Dublin on the BA 833 to Heathrow on the 10th of June, but ran into some issues, circled the Irish Sea, returned to Dublin, and then actually made a flight back to London Heathrow that evening, empty as a positioning move. New airport, I say new, relatively new airport. Echo Uniform Echo deployed on the 10th of June for pilot circuit training. Many of you know the drill now. It's the BA 9260 out, the BA 9261 back. The airport code for Paris-Chalon-Vatry is XCR, and the reason I understand for this variation is that the training captain who's in charge of the operation can choose the airport that they want to fly to and that they want to do the circuit training. Of course, one of the things they need to check with the airport is whether anyone else has booked the airport for similar activity, and also what other flights are due in that day. And the busier the airport, even if it's perhaps only 2 or 3 flights, it does hinder the circuit training, makes it more difficult, restricts the time they have, and I guess also some of the training captains perhaps have their preferred location. Slide to just update you on new Airbus construction, but nothing is imminent at this stage in terms of delivery from Toulouse or Hamburg. And that moves us on to the long haul fleet. Now, occasionally I get accused of overreacting, but I've said here long haul fleet crisis, and I think that's right. Just looking as I record this video on the morning of the 17th of June, there are 6 aircraft parked up at Cardiff or receiving maintenance or modifications. They've swapped over the Airbus A350 in Malta. There's an A380 in Manila. In fact, at the point I recorded this, there's 2 A380s in the Philippines, one on its way back, an A350 and an A380 on the ground, 5 additional 777s out of use at Heathrow, and 4 additional Dreamliners. So that's an awful lot of aircraft to have unavailable for commercial operations. And the consequence of that, well, if we just take Sunday the 15th of June, the day before we recorded this video, as an example, in addition to the schedule reductions that BA planned earlier this year, which reduced the number of flights from what it wanted to operate, it cancelled another 5 flights on the day. So the BA 295 to Chicago canned, the BA 105 to Dubai canned, BA 125 to Bahrain canned, and the BA 5 over to Japan to Tokyo Haneda cancelled as well. So all of those 4 flights probably chosen because they had the lightest passenger loads, and they had other flights available, either operated by BA or operated by other carriers where BA has agreements that could receive the passengers, but clearly not a happy situation. If we just have a look at each of the fleets, X-Ray Whiskey Bravo Lima on the Airbus A350 fleet had been under maintenance at Malta. It flew back on Monday the 16th of June, BA 9173, and with that shortage of aircraft there was no option to dilly-dally. It literally landed and went straight to a stand and loaded up as the BA 289 to Phoenix, and the X-Ray Whiskey Bravo Mike registered aircraft flew in the opposite direction, although strangely BA didn't do what you might expect them to do, which is for a single set of crew to fly Bravo Mike out and bring Bravo Lima back. Actually, Bravo Lima left Malta quite early in the day. Bravo Mike headed out later in the day, which I suspect reflects the urgency of getting an aircraft that's ready for traffic back into service. But X-Ray Whiskey Bravo Mike is now the A350 out of action over in Malta. On the A380 fleet, X-Ray Lima Echo Bravo left Manila after receiving heavy maintenance. It'd been there since the 3rd of March. It left on Sunday the 15th of June. It flew as the BA 9171 from Manila to Angeles City. There's only 68 miles between those airports as the crow flies, but it spent well over an hour in the air, took a 700-mile routing, headed out over the South China Sea, turned back in over the northern side of the Philippines, and then approached Angeles City from the north, expecting that aircraft to fly back to London Heathrow on Tuesday the 17th June as the BA 9175 Echo, and then drop onto a flight. So we'll see what happens there. X-Ray Lima Echo Charlie had headed out a few days previously on the 10th of June to Manila. Looks like the crew that took that remained in Manila for 4 or 5 days, probably were involved in checking out the aircraft, testing it, and that aircraft is currently undergoing its maintenance in Lufthansa Technic's facility at Manila. And for most of the period since my previous review, X-Ray Lima Echo Juliet out of use at London Heathrow from the 3rd right through to the 14th of June for maintenance. I have to say, though, good availability from the rest of the A380 fleet meant we saw no cancellations in that period, including those days when we had 2 aircraft either in Manila or on their way to or from Manila. The 777 fleet has had some challenges. We've seen a couple of aircraft out of use at London Heathrow for quite a long period of time. Victor India Romeo returned from maintenance at BA Cardiff on the 15th of June, flying as the BA 9178, and earlier in the day Victor India Tango had flown from Gatwick down to Cardiff. So that's the update on the 777s. I've also covered on that previous slide quite a few other 777s not available for traffic. Now, quite a lot of activity around the Dreamliner fleet, not all of it good. Of course, we've had the tragic news of the Air India 171 flight in Ahmedabad, and I guess that unfortunately puts a bit of a spotlight on the Dreamliner, on its faults and reliability. We can perhaps expect that until we know a bit more about what the investigation has revealed. But British Airways dealing with quite a few issues around the Dreamliner. Good news is that 7878 Zulu Bravo Juliet Golf returned from Cardiff maintenance from the work to fit club suites and rectify some other defects. It flew back to London Heathrow on the 8th of June as the BA 9173, back into service the next day on the 9th as the BA 291 to Washington Dulles. Zulu Bravo Juliet Foxtrot remains at Cardiff for club suites fitment, and Zulu Bravo Juliet Charlie remains under maintenance in BA at Cardiff. Zulu Bravo Kilo India has been out of use at London Heathrow since the 16th of May, but that returned to traffic on the 11th of June as the BA 105. Zulu Bravo Kilo returned from Pittsburgh, having been on the ground for 3 days. On the 7th of June, BA 9608 Pittsburgh back to London Heathrow, back into commercial activity on the 9th of June. Zulu Bravo Kilo Foxtrot flew to Mexico City on the 9th of June. Return flight cancelled. The aircraft flew back the next day as the BA 9605. Empty, and then it turned round at London, having changed crews, and flew empty back across the Atlantic, which is a bit odd. Also as the BA 9605 to Barbados to rescue passengers from a sister ship, Zulu Bravo Kilo Papa, which had suffered technical problems en route from Santiago as the BA 250. That diverted to Barbados on the 10th of June before attempting a crossing of the Atlantic. Passengers put up in hotels. Kilo Foxtrot was dispatched and returned in the early hours of the 12th of June as BA 9606 Barbados back to London Heathrow. And then Kilo Papa followed 2 days later on the 14th of June and picked up revenue duties the next day. 7878 Zulu Bravo Juliet Hotel flew from Heathrow down to Cardiff on the 13th of June. That's the next aircraft in the queue for club suites fitment. The 7878's really getting on now with the programme around club suites fitment. And the last of the Rolls-Royce batch 787-10s is Zulu Bravo Lima, that undertook its first test flight from Boeing on the 27th of May, subsequent flight on the 29th. It was expected back, or I say back, it was expected to arrive in the UK this weekend, just gone. That didn't happen, and we're expecting maybe the middle of this coming week that aircraft will fly from Charleston to Cardiff, just go through some acceptance processes at Cardiff, probably fly to London Heathrow towards the end of the week, early next week, and enter service. You can see with those cancellations I talked about earlier, BA could really do with that aircraft in the fleet and operational. Zulu Bravo Juliet Kilo flew from London Heathrow out to Montreal on the 11th of June. The return operation cancelled. It returned the next day as a BA 9607. And all those comings and goings, various shenanigans, mean that we've got 22% of the Dreamliner fleet unavailable for traffic as of the 15th of June. That's a summary of the Dreamliners that are out of action currently. And that's about it for this British Airways fleet update. Thanks to everyone for watching the fleet update. Thanks to those of you who like the video on YouTube, and in particular if you engage with a comment or some extra information. Thanks to everyone involved with the British Airways Flyer Talk forum. There are lots of hints and tips that I pick up there, the odd bit of information, a few areas for me to go off and dig into and look for more research. I'd strongly recommend the Flyer Talk website for the latest information, updates and discussion on all matters British Airways. I'll see you back here for another video very soon. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and click the notification button so you don't miss any of the great trips Mark has coming your way on this YouTube channel.